he really does see us as enemies to be destroyed. And so we should understand that. And this, of course, is like the whole conundrum of American politics for the left, which is that we're stuck with this awful party. Megan Day and I write about this in Bigger Than Bernie. We're stuck with this awful party that hates us, which is a really unfortunate scenario to be stuck in. But it's not going to change, and Joe Biden is going to continue to view us that way, and view us as the enemy. And so we shouldn't. We should only see our ability to win anything decent, to wrench anything, to wring anything decent out of him, as coming from our ability to do political damage to him, to fight him. That kind of sobriety about what the place of left-wing politics is within what the Democratic Party is up to is going to be crucial going forward. And so that just means assuming a position of constant combativeness with these people, because that's the way they view us. That's the way that, the fact that Biden ran on saying over and over again, I'm not the socialist, I beat the socialist. I mean, he so clearly wants to distance himself from left-wing politics of any kind. He so clearly, as I said, views it as something to be defeated, that we should have that same clarity that Joe Biden has, and should approach him as such over the next 4 years.
And what would you say is the best position to which you can be constantly combative from the Biden administration? Because, of course, we have people like AOC and Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, all these great people in the House of Representatives and some in the Senate as well. But they are obviously very small. They're not really a majority, or definitely not a majority, and maybe they could take some votes away in some cases. But what was the best way? Should we look inside the people, like electoral politics, House of Representatives, all those great members of the squad, or is it better to look out and kind of from with the people, as they say, build the us part of the movement? And how do we go about doing that?
Well, I guess to answer that question, I give an example of where I live in Chicago, which is that Chicago elected half a dozen city council members who are members of the Democratic Socialists of America. We also write about this in Bigger Than Bernie. And so that's 6 out of 50, 12% of the council, kind of an incredible number, the most that any city anywhere in the United States has. And the temptation in thinking about that string of victories is like, oh, there must be something unique about Chicago. There must be, I don't know, uniquely charismatic and effective people willing to run for elected office, and we need to find more of them and have them run for office. That's true, but what is specific about Chicago is not that we happen to find half a dozen socialists willing to run for city council, but that the political terrain of this city was transformed a decade ago with the change in leadership of the Chicago Teachers Union, which then went on strike in 2012 and has gone on strike numerous times since, and has really emerged as the left pole of politics in this city. And they've cohered a pole with other progressive unions and progressive communities to engage in the kind of militant action that the CTU has taken, and has taken strong stances against austerity. That is now the left pole of politics in this city, as comparison to the neoliberal Democratic Party politics of the right pole, represented by our current mayor, Lori Lightfoot. And so in transforming the Chicago Teachers Union, in being willing to go on strike numerous times, in cohering that political pole, that is what opened up the space for half a dozen socialists to win election to the Chicago City Council. And so that's a long way of saying that it's not a kind of either or question, like, do we do the Chicago Teachers Union style unionism and go on strike, or do we run people for office? The way that you can open up the political space for victories like the half dozen city council members is precisely by building up democratic, militant, anti-austerity, democratic unions, small d democratic unions, like the Chicago Teachers Union. So those two tasks are really two of the most central tasks going forward, is rebuilding the labor movement, which radicals have a really key role to play in, and then running people for office in the space that can be created by that kind of militant unionism.
And that's definitely some very, very clear goals to set and pathway to look forward to. Before I let you go there, because I have been holding on to you for a little bit here on this, hope you don't mind, but I do want to end with a little bit with a hopeful question. Like, what in your mind is the biggest thing left-wingers have to look forward to? Is it good pickups in 2022, possibly more members of the squad, or should we maybe be looking towards a Bernie-style candidate in 2024?
Well, I think broader than even those particular questions is the clear sense that people on the left should have that there is an opening for our politics right now. There is an opening that has not existed for at least half a century, if not, or maybe a better opening than has existed for at least half a century, if not longer than that, for this kind of politics. And politics is weird. Weird things can happen. You know, there could be a new Red Scare in 2021, and I end up in jail. Me and the rest of the Jacobin staff, and the leaders of DSA, and the leaders of the Chicago Teachers Union. I mean, who knows? There is historical precedent for such a thing happening in the United States that then destroys the left. So that's always on the horizon. By the way, that often happens when the left is in a period of upsurge. So definitely something to be aware of, that kind of state repression. So that could happen, but for right now, we have a really unique opening that can be taken advantage of on multiple fronts, whether it is through the kind of union organizing I was talking about, or fighting for demands like student loan jubilee or affordable housing fights in much of the country. All of these things, there is a real opening for us that can also be taken advantage of through running people for office and winning on those kind of left-wing platforms. So that should, we shouldn't overblow, what the opportunity is. We shouldn't overestimate our strength. We should be very sober about the fact that we are still incredibly weak. We are only a minoritarian current in literally everywhere that we operate. But we have a toehold right now, and we should take advantage of it. We should act with a kind of confidence and sense of urgency right now, at the understanding that this kind of opportunity is really once in a lifetime. I mean, I think of the people I know who got radicalized at the tail end of the 60s and into the 70s and became socialists and really carried on that flame of socialist politics through some very dark times, through years in which they were totally isolated, where to be a socialist was something to kind of be mocked and laughed at and seen as a kind of historical oddity. And they held on to those politics because they believed deep down in their bones that that was the vision for a better society that was worth maintaining and worth fighting for. And they did it through really lean years. But now, you talk to some of these older people, they're still, despite everything that's happened, despite the end of the Sanders campaign and the many defeats that have been suffered by the left over the last couple of years, they're still ecstatic about the fact that we are operating in a totally different world right now. So we should be grateful for that, we who are socialists, and we should take advantage of it, because historically we know that this window, when it opens, it often slams shut pretty soon. So if we're smart about how we go about our organizing, we can accomplish a lot right now.
Definitely something to take advantage of in the future. Looks bright, even though there are some crazy things happening at the moment. Micah Uetricht, deputy editor of Jacobin magazine, host of the vast majority of podcasts, and author of Bigger Than Bernie and Strike for America. And of course, very importantly, member of the Democratic Socialists of America, which is obviously a great organization that I'm sure you would agree with that statement there. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.